Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is take off the transmission bracket. And again with this, I'm going to zip tie these bolts on there and just throw it in my bracket bin. And sensor. And then with this guy, I'll unplug that, take out that, it's a 10 millimeter. There you go. I'm just gonna put this back in here. Same thing, I'm gonna zip tie that together. I'm gonna zip tie this on there and put it in my bin. Alright, so this is kind of what I'm saying here. So anything that has basically a bolt on it that's like connected to a sensor, I just go ahead and zip tie it. Zip tie it so that it stays with that until I'm ready to get a new sensor, and then I'll keep it with it the whole time. And then I just kind of set it to the side, or I might throw it in here. And up next, the motor mount. If I can get it off. Perfect. And then same thing, I'm going to zip tie these and put it in my bracket bin. So up next, I'm going to go ahead and get the tensioner pulley off, which I believe is 215 mils. 1, 2, just like that. Same thing. I'm gonna go ahead and zip tie these where they go, so I don't forget them. And then we're gonna move on to the water manifold. All right, actually, the next thing I'm gonna take off is the alternator bracket. So 15 mils. That out of the way first. That guy. That guy. Now, because I'm going to be repainting this, I'm not going to zip tie these ones. I'm just going to bag and tag these as alternator bracket bolts, so that I can paint this without the bolts attached to it, obviously. So, that guy out. And got to get that pulley off, it looks like. Slides right off. There we go. Alright, again, so something that I did to kind of make this easier was I went ahead and took some Sharpie and I colored all the bolts that are the same on the tops of them, and the bolts that are different are in different colors, so that when I take them out and I put them all in a bag, and then obviously I took a reference photo of the whole front of the motor too, so I know from the photo when I get the bolts back out which ones that they actually go to. So up next, I'm gonna go ahead and take these bolts out. We're gonna try to crack the water manifold apart from the block and see if we can get it loose. And real quick, I'm just gonna take the steam port line off of the manifold because I want to keep that with the actual steam port line. I don't want to have that attached to the manifold, so I'm gonna take this off real quick before we actually unbolt the manifold. Break them all loose. See, different sizes. That's why I want to make sure that they're exactly the same. Double check when they come out, and then I know where those go back. Again, just check the length. Make sure you got it right. Oh, there we go. Looks like we got her loose. Not too bad. There's your manifold. Alright, so with the coil packs, these are actually pretty easy. It's all the bolts that have the studs sticking up. You can take those out. They're all 10 millimeter. And essentially, that'll take the whole brace right off. And you can pull the whole thing right up. And I got the bolts out. This whole thing comes right off. And then you have 4 8 millimeter bolts to get the valve covers off. Alright, so we got the coil packs off. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and take the intake off. It's a whole bunch of 8 millimeter bolts. So take those guys out. One's already out. Here on the other side. And you have to do it in this order because the alternator bracket covers the last bolt on this, so this kind of has to be one of the last things you take off after some of the accessory stuff. Boom. 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 I'm going to disconnect the line here. Set that aside for a second. Or just pull it off. And theoretically, this whole thing should come right up. Let's see here. Got one more still attached right there. Boom. And it's free. Woo, it's grimy in there, boy. Wow. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is going to take the valley cover off. You can see that there's a little bit of, looks like maybe some steam corrosion. It's definitely wet. I think we probably had some head gaskets leaking. So I did a little bit of disassembly on the other side, but I'm going to show you on this side. It's basically the same thing. First thing I'm going to do is take the steam ports off. 10 millimeter bolt. Super easy. Super easy. Set that aside. I'm going to do 13 millimeter. And one thing I noticed on this cover, these bolts are super loose. Way more loose than they're supposed to be. Boom. So take that off. Oh. And there's that. And there is your displacement on demand solenoids there. So that's going to get replaced with a flat traditional valley cover. Set that aside. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and pull the valve covers. So those are going to be an 8 mil. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that comes right off. There we go. Got a little more oil staining on this side. Alright, so we got it disassembled down to here. The next thing that we're going to do is go ahead and pull the rockers off. So this whole thing you could pull right off. Again, it's an 8 millimeter. And they're a little tight. So let me break them loose real quick. One. And again, when it comes to this stuff, terms of the rods, cam, lifters, I'm not concerned about what position they're in. They're all going to get changed to a non-DOD stuff. So you can pull this whole rocker assembly right out. Make sure you got these loosened enough. Put our hand there. There you go. This whole thing comes right out. Just keep it together. Push the bolts down, and you can set that whole thing right aside. And again, make sure you got a clean workspace to do this in. Make sure you got a full table set up so you can organize all this stuff. We're gonna pull our push rods out. I don't see any fish-eyeing. These look pretty clean, nice and shiny. Don't see really any issues with these. Okay, so now that we have all the push rods out, pulled those out, all these head bolts are going to be 15 millimeters, so 15, 15 all the way across in the bottom two rows. The top ones are going to be 10 millimeter. So I just broke these loose with a bar in the socket, and then I'm just going to zip them out with my impact. $10 millimeter. Make sure you take your steam ports off too. 1, 2 on both sides. One of them is blocked off, one's connected to the tube. So take those off, bag them up. I'm going to pull the head off. This guy here, right here, the intake. Pull it off. Alright, so I see a little bit of seam cleaning on the insides of the cylinders. I think this head gaskets were leaking pretty bad. On the other side, 3 of them are pretty dark like this, and then one of them on that side, I believe it's cylinder number 7 over here, was almost completely steam cleaned, and that was a cylinder that was misfiring when I ran my diagnostic tool on it. So I'm thinking my misfire was not coming from a collapsed lifter, but coming from so much of the basically the steam effect from the coolant being too wet in there for the spark plug to have ignition with the spark. So, but yeah, you can see here, I think these gaskets were failing, so maybe at least a little bit. Possibly. See, clean one, and then looks like 3. This one's pretty bad, that one's pretty bad, and then the other side is even worse. There's only a little portion of it I'll show you. But next up, just take the gasket off. And there's that. So next thing that we're going to do is we're going to pull the lifter trays out. 10 millimeter. Go ahead and pull them. You might have a lifter or 2 connected to it, and I do. Just set those aside. This depends where they get caught, depending where it's at in the rotation, if it catches them or not. There's 2. I'm going to use my pliers here and just gently pull the lifters out. There's one. That's a normal lifter. These will also be normal. This one here, where you see the oil channels, those 2 that are closest to it, those are going to be the deactivated cylinders. So these 2 lifters here are going to be the ones with the springs connected, and I'll show you those in a second. So again, these are all going to be basically tossed. Not in too bad a shape, actually. Look pretty decent, rolling good. But I'll show you the DOD ones in a second. Alright, so essentially, get them out of here. here is your DOD lifters. So these are the ones with the spring. So essentially these are the ones that collapse to shut the cylinder off if it senses that the oil pressure is lowered down. And these are part of what's basically going to be getting replaced with normal LS7 lifters. They're prone to failure. I don't see any of mine in a collapsed position or stuck shut. It's pretty clean in terms of the motor. It looks pretty clean oil. It doesn't look too bad. It was pretty well taken care of. So, but anyways, that's what they look like. You'll have 2 of these in each of the deactivation cylinders. So yeah, take them out. We can bag them up. Part of the DOD delete kit is going to include new lifter trays, LS7 lifters, cam, new rods, springs. So pretty much anything related to the timing set, or the timing, you know, the cam, the rods, lifters, all that stuff. That's all going to be replaced completely. So we're not going to be reusing any of this stuff, but that kind of gives you an example of what it looks like when you pull them out. So right here, you can see on this cylinder, there's quite a bit more kind of a steam cleaning effect that happened on this one. These ones aren't as consistent as the other side, but you can see a little bit up in the corner there, a little bit up there, a little bit up there. And this one is pretty clean. I did rub it a little bit, but that's basically what it was. So that one was leaking bad. This is also the cylinder that for me was misfiring. So I'm thinking it was just getting quite a bit of coolant that was running into that cylinder there, and possibly making it misfire and not having a correct ignition. So, but that's basically it. Got lifters out, heads off, push rods out, got the manifold off, took all the sensors off, just basically bagged and tagged them. Made sure I took pictures of the whole thing along the way for when I put it back together. Next thing I'm going to be doing is basically getting the harmonic balancer puller. I'm going to pull the balancer off. We're going to take the timing cover off, take the cam out, take the sprocket off, take a look at all that type of stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that. Over here, like I'm saying, make sure you have a good table set up for all this stuff. I've got my rockers there, heads there. I just bagged and tagged all the stuff, push rods, lifter trays, bolts. I put all those in one bag. I'll probably reuse the bolts for the trays, but all this is getting replaced. I did just bag and tag the lifters, just in case I want to reference them later for any reason. Head bolts, again, we're not going to be reusing these. These are all torque to yield, so we'll get some ARP head bolts, but I might use them for other things. And then also, if I do want to reference them later, there's a part number or something I want off them or something. And then I did also get this too. This is some sort of a bottle thing, but essentially it's got, I just kind of wrote in here front, timing side. So this is what I'm going to do when I put my pistons in, because you want to make sure those and the rod caps are all together, all in order from the proper cylinder you pull them out of. So this is kind of where I'm going to set the pistons when we pull them out. And then here's some of the, just had a little 3-drawer plastic organizer here. So some of my bagged and tagged stuff is in here. A lot of stuff from the first video is in there. Stuff from the second video is going to be in here. So valve cover bolts and grommets, put them in there. Again, we'll probably get new ones, but in case I want to reuse the bolts. Steam ports. So I didn't tag those, but I know what they are. So those are the steam port bolts, and including the ones that are blocked off. Alternator bracket bolts. Water manifold bolts that are color coded. So everything is basically in here that's bagged and tagged. Right over here I put most of all my parts. Just when I got a little Harbor Freight moving blanket, and just kind of set everything out right here, just so we're keeping this organized. And then I'm just going to slide the table back over top of this. So you got your valley cover, valve covers, water manifold, coil packs. There's your intake, alternator bracket, some pulleys. This is the new SSR intake that I'm going to be throwing on it, so I just threw that down here for now too. So over there is my transmission. So when you're doing this, you just want to really make sure that you're staying as organized as possible. You want to keep organized, keep everything in place as much as you can, bag and tag everything as you go, so that when you reassemble this and put this back together, you know where your stuff's at. It's pretty simple, straightforward. because with all these parts and different things, you can get lost in it really fast. So yeah, up next, go ahead and take the harmonic balancer off and go ahead and pull the balancer, pull the timing chain.